Hello, and welcome everyone to ThursdAI for September 4th. So fun to be back. I missed this. I missed the show. I wasn't here with you guys last week, and I'm very, very happy to come back here and talk about everything that happened in the world of AI for the past week, and maybe a week and a half or two, because some of the stuff I missed and I want to maybe discuss. We have a great show for you today. So my name is Alex Volkov. I'm an AI evangelist with Weights and Biases, for those of you who forgot after 1 week. But with me, I have co-hosts. I have Jan Peleg and LDJ. Nissan Peleg going to join us. And we have a few great guests today. So very, very much a great show I'm looking forward to. We'll have folks from Nous Research. Roger Jin is going to join us to talk about their new release. And we have our own Kwindla Kramer, one of our experts on voice and audio, everything voice and audio, founder of Daily and the maintainer of Pipecat. With that, I want to say hi to my friends, Jan Peleg, LDJ. How was last week, folks? How was this week for you in AI? Jan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Coding agents are blowing up and
Yeah.
everyone is competing, and we are the one to benefit out of it. We get better
Okay.
agents, we get better models. And I just want to say, I had a post that took off about Codex because it's good. It is really, really good. And there is a hype. There was hype building up. So I was curious. I went to check whether or not it's real or it's just hype. And no, it's real. Codex with GPT-5 is really good. It's a solid option.
I'm
And
really
should
looking forward to hear more on that, because I think that people are always looking for some stuff. And while Codex is, it came out with a bang, and then people was like, oh no, Claude Code is better, but they kept working on it, and there's some great people on there. So definitely looking forward to hear some tips and tricks for you for Codex. I know one thing, and I'll be able to contribute to that conversation because they did update some stuff in Codex. LDJ, what's up, man? How are you? How was your week? What's the most interesting things that stood out to you this week?
Yeah, my week was good. I noticed what seems really interesting is a Grok fast code, which I think it was maybe released the day after our last Thursday, but it seems to be one of the fastest scoring models on OpenRouter now. It seems to be in top 3 places, actually, at least last I checked.
Yeah.
And what Yam was saying about Codex, yeah, it does seem to be better now. Sam actually tweeted yesterday that usage is up 10x in the past 2 weeks, which is pretty insane. And he said improvements are coming, which, if people remember, there's the Codex 1 model that they have with it, and maybe they're hinting at Codex 2, and I guess like maybe coding fine-tune of GPT-5. We'll see.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Definitely Codex blowing up. Sonic was, if I'm not mistaken, the code name for Grok Code Fast 1 or whatever they call it now. And I think it was tested in multiple places. People mentioned that it's like super fast. And yeah, I think it was released within the last episode or just a little bit afterwards, and it's taking off. Space Uncle is very proud of that achievement, and very interesting that Grok is now part of the coding world, which seems to be one of the more hitting areas of AI, at least lately, and one of the areas where AI seems to get the most adoption and the most excitement and the most improvements for productivity, which is great. My week was a little bit off. I am coming back from a very special place and still recovering. But I think that I really was very happy to see you guys covered Nano Banana last week. And Nano Banana is the Gemini image one now, but everybody still calls it Nano Banana. Just such a cool name.
they change it back to Nano Banana on
Really?
Google AI Studio. There is a model called Nano Banana.
That's great.
Because
That's great.
absolutely great. Yeah.
So shout out to the person in Google who came up with this incredible naming, because it's stuck. So Google has been definitely killing it this summer. Nano Banana is just the latest and greatest kind of update. And I'm catching up on all of the creative uses of it, where people take the Nano Banana image model and then they put the outputs as a last frame on some of the more interesting video models lately that release support for first name. I think Van released the support for first name last frame. Julio Kling, like all these things, and then people do some incredible stuff like exploding objects. So I'm really excited to catch up on some of the more creative uses of stuff like the responsible banana, and it's fast as well. I love that it's fast. So this was kind of my highlight as well. If you guys are tuning in on X, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, hi LinkedIn, 5 people from LinkedIn, everywhere via my stream, Yam stream, or Wolfram's, who is not with us today, taking a well-deserved break, then please comment with whatever it was the highlight in the world of AI for you this week. We would love to know in case we missed it. We absolutely are trying to cover everything that happened in the world of AI. I would say no huge model releases this week, but there's a few. And as I said before, we'll have the folks from Nous Research join us shortly to talk about Hermes 4. They released another model today, so they had a few fine-tunes, and now they had another model, actually yesterday. And then we'll chat with Kwindla Kramer about GPT RealTime, which is also very, very exciting. If we have some time, we will also maybe have breaking news. I hear our friends from our favorite Chinese lab are up to something. But with that said, let's get into the TLDR. Let's chat about what we have going on the show this week. And we'll dive into open source immediately after that. For those who are unfamiliar, TLDR is the corner where we basically run through super fast with focus on every bit of news that we have that we're going to chat about. In that case that you don't have the time to sit with us for a few hours, you will know everything that happened. Let's go to TLDR. TLDR, of course, stands for too long didn't read. In this case, it's too long didn't listen because the show is long. But let's get to it. So today on the show, the host is Alex Volkov. That's me. I'm very happy to be back. I have co-host LDJ is here. Jan Peleg is here. Nissan is going to join in a bit. Wolfram is taking a well-deserved break. The guests for today is Roger Jin, and I think he's bringing another friend that I didn't write down yet from Nous Research, and Kwindla Kramer, the founder and CEO of Daily and the maintainer of PipeCat, which is incredible. Quinn has been multiple times on the show before, and if you've seen him before and you're into the voice stuff, you know how incredible Quinn is. So I'm very excited to have him back. And then we're going to talk about open source at the start, and I think we're going to talk about Nous Hermes. It just launched last week, so folks already covered it on the show last week. However, they kept launching, and they released the 405B and I think the 70B last week, and this week they released the 14B tune of Qwen, and this is a compact reasoning model with tool calling for local cloud use. We also have some news that this Hermes 4 is getting some incredible results on the EQ bench from Sam Peach benchmark. Not only that, the Nous folks released another thing. They released a benchmark called Husky Hold'em Bench. We'll chat with them about this as well. Husky Hold'em Bench is an open source PokerBot eval. So LLMs create PokerBots that play poker and then strategically play against each other and have some ELO score. Very interested in hearing about that. We will welcome this in, and then we'll talk about the Tencent's open source Hunyuan MT. So this is a translation model, specific translation model that won the WMT 2025. Very interesting from them. Alibaba has like multiple AI areas in it. So Tongi is one of them. And they open sourced a vision language deep research agent with a new state of the art with a VQA style retrieval and planning on benchmarks. It's called Web Watcher, and it's very interesting. Apertus 8B and 70B from Switzerland, fully open multilingual LLM. It's trained on 15 trillion tokens, and it should across 1,800 languages. What? This is news to me as well. I'm very excited to talk about this. 1,800 languages. I wasn't aware there's so many languages in the world generally. It looks like a lot of tokens went into this for this like multilingual model. So a bunch of stuff to talk about on open source. Anything from hosts here? Anything that we should talk about that I missed?
Kimi K2 update, that they released a little update to their model. It's not like too major, but some improvements to coding capabilities and all around little bumps.
We love Kimi. Let's go to big companies and LLMs and APIs next. We will start with Mistral, adding 20 MCP-powered connectors and memories in Lechat for enterprise. Anthropic, I think, with the big news of the big labs this week, raised $13 billion in Series F funding. Those GPUs are not cheap, folks. They are not cheap. And so $13 billion and a $183 billion post-money valuation for Anthropic. People do seem to be buying Anthropic stuff. The revenue grew incredibly from just a few months ago. I think in the multiple billions of dollars growth, not just like total, just growth is multiple billions of dollars. And so shout out to Anthropic. Also shout out to the guy who's in jail, Sam Bankman-Fried, whose investment in Anthropic would have been worth like, I don't know, like $30 billion at this point, lest he, didn't screw up with some crypto stuff and then went to jail. But yeah, a very pernicious investment from SBF. OpenAI ships GPT real-time, which folks talked about on the show last week. And the real-time API is now in GA with remote MCP tool support and image input and SIP phone calling. And we'll have Quinn talk to us about some updates there. I'm very, very looking forward to that. OpenAI also did some updates for free users. So free users now get projects. So if you're not paying the $20 or $200, and we don't blame you, there's so many AI tools to choose from, you will now get projects. And there's a little bit of updates to projects, as well as AI buys the company StatSig. The folks from StatSig join as like VPs in some application building or another within OpenAI. This means a lot for the coding industry as well. And I think the last thing to update in the big companies and APIs, Grok Code 1, FKA, formerly known as Sonic, is now taking 50% of traffic on OpenRouter. It helps that it's given out for free on multiple places, so the pricing is flexible there, but definitely a new contender for coding, and we will talk about why and how. Folks, I have a very exciting this week's buzz. A very, very exciting this week's buzz because CoreWeave announced a purchase of a new company, just like they purchased Weights and Biases. We have announced that the great folks from OpenPipe are joining. The great folks from OpenPipe, Kyle Corbett, David Corbett, and a bunch of other folks who work on this incredible platform on the art training RL platform are joining CoreWeave as well. So CoreWeave went into an agreement and buys out OpenPipe. Kyle and David and a bunch of folks are joining the Weights and Biases team, the CoreWeave team, to build out a full, complete infrastructure, metal to model, including tracing, availability, including training for RL, including everything. And I'm really excited to talk about this a little bit, about the implications of this and how one platform is going to fit everything. We now have tracing, we have model training, we have inference. We're really gearing up to be an all-around company. So I'm very excited about this. And again, shout out to Weights and Biases and CoreWeave for allowing this podcast to happen for 2.5 years already, which is very, very exciting. So shout out and also congratulations to Kyle and David about this. LDJ, go ahead.
Yeah, so a couple of things on Big Co LLMs
that's
reported on within the past couple of days, which is $10 billion raise at $500 billion post-money valuation. But it's actually interesting in that it's actually a sale of employee shares. So it's allowing the employees to basically sell about $10 billion of shares, and that's basically the employees getting $10 billion essentially.
So it's like a share buyback for employees. Wow.
Let's go.
So
Let's go, guys. Let's
shout
go.
out to multiple OpenAI millionaires that were born and are able to realize their gains, which is not usual for a private company. Anything else, LJ, in the big companies? Looks like no. Alrighty, folks. So we're moving forward. Apple released Fast VLM 7B. It's a speed-first vision encoder, 85 times faster times to first token versus peers, and it's really super fast. It's blowing up on Hugging Face right now. So shout out to Apple, and really looking forward to see if Apple's going to mention any AI next week on Monday, where the new Apple event is going to happen. And also, last thing that we should definitely talk about is Codex versus Claude Code discussion. I would love to hear from Yam and Nistin about this. Folks, I think that's most of the show. And I think with the interviews, we have a full show. And I think it's time to get started with open source. Let's go. Open source AI, let's get it started. Alrighty, folks, it's time. Let's get it started. I think we'll start with smaller potatoes for a little bit, and then we'll get to the interviews as well, as we have folks joining us today. Let me see if I am. Yeah, I'm sharing my screen so I can talk to you about this one. Tencent. We'll start with Tencent. Tencent everywhere. Hunyuan, the video models everywhere. They had like multiple language models at this point. It's getting harder to follow the Chinese labs, but hey. That's why we're here for. They announced the open source release of Hunyuan MT. MT stands for machine translation, obviously. 7B. Latest translation model that they won the WMNT 2025 awards. Now, very interesting to chat about between us super quick. Why would a specific translation model is needed when these models are great in translation anyway? And I think like with everything, fine-tuning models for a specific use case first, and then rolling those updates into a big model has been a pattern that we've seen so far everywhere. Like the Codex model started out as a coding model, then they rolled into GPT. I think Elon talks about Grok Code also getting rolled into this. We've seen the same with Qwen. It seems like this is the pattern, but 7B for a translation model is kind of chunky. I think, listen, we always talk about what's the use case for smaller models running on device, and we always mention translation is one of them. Like you can run a local model for translation, and most of the time it will be correct because translation is like very easy. What do you think about this one?
Because you got to pull in data from multiple sources, and you do have often to do translation, even if you're just benchmarking. So a 7B to run at scale is pretty good. If you go a bit lower, it doesn't have enough meat in it to just pick up the different languages, but at 7B it's pretty good when I've tried it. So I think this is like the smallest good translator that they could make, and then they can run really fast for, I would say it's more for data work rather than personal inference. For personal inference, you just pick something for one or two languages and maybe refine tune it, but it's good.
On the Floors 200, which is a data set, a benchmark, I guess, of 200 languages, they look like they're getting very, very close to GPT 4.1. And this is a 7B local model. So expect this to be useful for local use cases. They're comparing themselves to all the major labs models. So we see GPT 2.5, Gemini 2.5 Pro, GPT 4.1, Claude Sonnet, and this 7B model stands with the shoulders of giants. I really like the fact that when we see a new model release with a specific use case, like a translation model, they all compare to the larger models. All the larger models are well-rounded, they're multimodal as well. So comparing with this one niche use case is great, but like it's kind of omitting everything else the other model does, but for a specific use case, I think it makes sense. So they also posted a technical report, and folks who are into translation definitely should check it out for local use cases. 33 languages support and 5 minority language support, very, very high coverage. They also open sourced MT Chimera, which is open source integrated translation model, intentionally refines translations from multiple models to deliver more accurate professional results. Oh, that's interesting. So this takes translation from other models and kind of refines them. So kind of like a pipeline model in the mix.
But I don't think this is that. This is more that it speaks different languages. But anyway, I might actually use it because I like generating medical data sets in other people's languages. Like you're a French doctor for Médecins Sans Frontières and like Doctors Without Borders, and you do want to have something that translates it back to English, because then you get a more varied data set. So I wouldn't really consider this for on-device something. You want a 3B or lower on-device. It's just a little bit chunkier, but it's great for doing data work. That's how I see it.
Yeah, so shout out to Tencent for releasing this. Let's just take a look at the license before we move on. I believe it's Apache.
It's probably MIT, or it might be there.
We are looking at, I don't see license here. License.
Licenseless. Nobody cares.
Yeah, I just want to say the reason this is important, it's important for this model to be this small, is because you generate, when you train a model in a new language or extend languages for models, you really need to translate a huge amount of data. So you need the smaller model as small as possible, because you're going to translate inference of trillions of tokens, maybe, from one language to the other, just for your training, like synthetic data. So the smaller the model that you can have, it's better. It's just going to be cheaper, orders of magnitude cheaper. 7B can be really good translation models. I tried only for 2 languages, but I can see how it works well with more languages if you have more compute, and Tencent definitely has more compute.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, we'll cover the last thing before kind of the main coverage of open source. We are looking at Apertus 8B and Apertus 70B. This is a 15 trillion token train on open data from 1,800 languages, which is way more languages than I thought existed generally. Academia to work and train on LLM across the full stack. They did pre-training with some innovations. They posted a technical report, soon to be posted on archive. This is a Switzerland large-scale multilingual language model. They say it's fully open source, so shout out to folks on this. I want to see the model on Hugging Face as well. So this is Centro Svizzero de Calcolo Scientifico, CSCS, National Supercomputing Center from Switzerland. So it's great to see Europe kind of contributing to the open source. And Mistral is kind of like a little bit lagging behind in open source. Sometimes they release cool stuff and they were like clap, but generally Europe has been a little bit lagging behind.
There are really good people from Switzerland specifically. There are many notable people from
Notable
field.
academic, and in Zurich is very well received, like in multiple conferences as well. Like there's tons of people in ICML and CVPR and everywhere basically. So the folks posted the link to Hugging Face, so let me go find it. The link on the page is just a link to Hugging Face, not necessarily their Hugging Face. So here's the collection of models. Apertus LM. Let's take a look at this collection. We have 2 70B versions, so I'm assuming one is base, one is instruct, and then 2 8B versions, one is base, one is instruct, 2509, and the license will be Apache 2. So yeah, definitely worth shouting out.
Oh yeah, Apache 2, thank you very much.
Every time Apache license is with us, we clap because this is what we want from open source. Everything else is not really open source. I need to ask
the paper is really interesting. They reveal everything and anything you just wanted to know. Very insightful. All the experiments, all the decisions. Highly recommend. We don't have time to go through everything in the paper, obviously, but highly recommend if you are into these kind of things, training models, fine-tuning. It's a really good end-to-end paper release. One of the few that we had. So
we credit Allen AI always for fully open models, so we should credit these folks as well. Not only the open weights, they did open data as well, which is incredible, and then the full training details, including all data and training recipes as well. So if you want to train a model such as this, these releases are incredible. Alrighty, folks, what else is interesting here? It's you can use this in VLM, in Fast Transformers, 15 trillion tokens, and supports an incredible 1,800 languages. I don't see any variations, so I'm not assuming they trained the SOTA model fully open source. They did post some comparisons to Olmo and Euro LLM and Small LM. So usually these folks, they do fully open. They don't hit SOTA necessarily, but they do compare themselves to other SOTA open source models. Shout out to Apertus releases from Swiss AI. And we are now moving forward to cover the awesome Nous Research releases. Folks who have been following ThursdAI for a while know that we have a particular love in our hearts for Nous Research. We've been chatting with Nous folks way before they were even a company. I remember announcing that they kind of founded the company, and since then they went on to do incredible stuff. Obviously, one of the highlights of Nous Research, at least for me, is that they fine-tune open models and usually create significant jumps in those fine-tunes. So to chat with us about this, we have Roger, Jin, and Bhavesh. Bhavesh, I would love for you to add your last name here to chat about this last week's and this week's releases. So welcome, folks. Welcome, Roger. Welcome, Bhavesh. How are you guys doing?
Hey, doing great. Thank you for having us.
Great meeting you guys, and thank you for hopping on. We have a busy show, but I'm very happy that you guys came on, because last week, obviously, Hermes 4 was released, and big fanfare, 405B and 70B, and this week you guys followed up with another release of a 14B tune of I want to say fine-tune of Quen.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then you guys also released a technical report that looks like a paper, but it's a technical report because the news girl is on top, and then all your names are in there, including Technium, whose first time I think his first name shows up there, but also all your X handles are underneath, which is the most important part, I think, in AI research for a group such as yours. So, Roger, how about we start with a brief intro to you and then Bhavesh, and then we're going to talk about the release, and then follow up, we're going to talk about the new bench you guys released as well.
Yeah, sure. So I've been at Nous for about a year. I'm on the post-training team under Technium, machine learning engineer. I work on data. I work on evals. I work a little bit on RL. And I was involved in the Hermes 4 project.
Awesome. And Bhavesh, how about you?
Hi, I just joined Nous 2 months ago. It was a very exciting opportunity for me. And I was not as involved in the Hermes 4 release. I just was involved in the benchmark.
Awesome. So we're going to cover both. And I think we'll start with the announcement of Hermes. Roger, let's treat this kind of release conversation about all the models as well. I know the folks covered a little bit of the Hermes 4 release before and last week, but for folks who missed it, can you give us a brief overview of the releases of Hermes 4, the work that went into this, and kind of what it fine-tunes? I think there's a mix of fine-tunes, right? Like the one is Llama 405B, a few of them is Quen. How about you give us a holistic overview of Hermes 4, the release, and we'll celebrate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we released 3 models in sizes 4, 5B, and 70B. These are fine-tunes of Llama 3.1, and we also released a 14B, which is a fine-tune of Quen 3. And for all of these, we start from the base model, so not from the instruction fine-tune model. And the goal of our fine-tunes or these models is always kind of to create a generally aligned, neutrally aligned model. So a model that can be shaped by the user, that doesn't kind of lecture the user about ethics that the model company may have baked into the model, but it's kind of like a neutral tool, just like a computer or something that the user can shape to their own liking. We can see that kind of did some evals. This is one of our first flagship reasoning models. We had this Deep Hermes preview release, but this is our first flagship reasoning model. Just like other reasoning models, we find they can do math and code, but when we evaluate the model on high school Olympiad problems, it actually doesn't perform quite as well as other open source competitors. But we find that we see interesting generalization to other domains because along with math and code, we didn't just focus on these areas. We actually mix in quite a bit of chaotic data from all sorts of different domains. We actually get some nice performance gains in other non-math code benchmarks. So for example, it seems like we're 5th place on the leaderboard for EQ Bench 3, these complicated interpersonal relationship scenarios benchmark. In Bhavesh's Husky Hold'em, PokerBots eval, it seems like we're actually the leading open source model. So we're seeing some gains on maybe these non-traditional benchmarks. I think some interesting facet of this model is we might have actually undertrained it in terms of reasoning benchmarks. Well, basically we stopped training the model, not because the reasoning benchmark stopped going up, but because our more spiritually enlightened model behavior people decided this model is definitely losing its model soul in the chain of thought. So
in the chain of thought? That's interesting.
Yeah. So we're looking for base model-y chaotic behaviors in the chain of thought. And when we started observing that the entropy was going down, that's when we started deciding to terminate the training. It wasn't actually that the reasoning benchmark saturated or something. It seems like we could still potentially get more gains from a longer training run, but we wanted to preserve the entropy of the base model. That was the cutoff point for this project.
I think following the news folks on your Discord, you have multiple models that are trying to get unlocked as well. Opus for the longest time was a very unlocked model on the Discord as well. And there's multiple folks there that smell the soul. I know, shout out to Quran, for example, and the bigger models are definitely more soulful, 405B, for example. So could you talk about comparing those not MOEs that you train, those that you fine-tune? You fine-tune big, large, dense models. Could you talk about a little bit of a data mix? How do you get 405B to the top of EQ Bench, for example? It was a direct question, I think, on X that somebody asked, and I would love to hear also. What do you think contributes to these specific results on the less hill-climbed benchmarks, for example?
Yeah. So I think we put a lot of effort into the data for Hermes 4. So Hermes 3 data set was 1 million samples, I think around 1.2 billion tokens. And Hermes 4 data set was around 5 million samples and 56 billion tokens. So it's 5x more samples and then around 45x more tokens. And into this data mix, I think there was plenty of traditional STEM, math coding, data, reasoning data. And a lot of that is actually just open source already. But I think we put substantial effort into generating interesting data for these all sorts of domains. And we have various techniques to do this. So one of these is what we call Data Forge. So this is based on a paper called Agent Instruct. where we take pre-training data as almost a random seed. We take a piece of pre-training data, and then let's say it's a news article. We then might transform it into some other document. Let's say we transform the news article into a rap song. And then we take this rap song and then we generate an instruction about it. Like, what's the beat of the rap song, or give me a rhetorical analysis of the rap song. And we kind of do this over a large random subset of pre-training data. So that's where we get some of our diversity. And then we have other techniques where maybe for specific use cases, we really want the model to perform well. So for example, we really care that the model can output things in specific formats, complicated nested JSON or whatever kinds of formats. So for these kinds of things where we want to list out, enumerate entire space, we kind of have the model generate a whole taxonomy of all the formats, kind of like list some domain, have the model partition it, produce a partition of the domain to subdomains, and then sub-subdomains within those, etc. And then when it gets to something that feels like indivisible, you can kind of just have it list out examples. And we found this is helpful for when we want to completely cover some area. And then another thing that might be related to this is we actually generate some data from personas. So from Persona Hub, like find personas, we use these as seeds to simulate synthetic users. So this might be another source of where the understanding of different kinds of humans comes from. But the data mix is quite chaotic. So I think we were also quite surprised that we did so well on EQBench 3. And so I think we still have yet to do the proper ablations to figure out what is the source of the magic here.
Yeah, just like one or two more questions about the model super quick. Any changes to context length? I want to shout out Nous folks, because literally since we chatted with Mozilla and a bunch of other folks about rope, 2 years ago, and then yarn, and some of the work that you guys did for this, literally every other lab just uses those techniques. Some don't even expose that they use them. Any interesting updates to context length, or the same as base models? License changes would love to hear as well. And kind of what are you gearing Hermes models for folks to use for? I think that's also very interesting. Folks who are listening to our show, they're getting excited about all these fine tunes, some different benchmark evals, etc. The Chinese models are open sourced, and they want to rebuild the image of China within the open source community. So there's multiple reasons to release. Would love to hear where Nous Research stands right now in terms of why and for whom are you releasing these models, and then absolutely we'll talk about the bench as well.
Yeah. So I think starting off with the context length changes, we trained Hermes 3 at context length 8,000, and Hermes 4 we actually trained at 16,000. But we actually see that it can reason up to 40,000 tokens. The max context length for the Llama model 70B and 45B is 131K, same as the base model. And for the base model is trained at 32K, but then they extended to 4960. So we also released ours at 4960. And they recommend in the Qwen 3 docs, you can use yarn to extend it up to 128K. I didn't actually run evals that for our model at 128K, but that is something one can do. And then I guess regarding what is the model useful for, I think one of our main goals for this model is that it's primed to do RL, not just math and coding, but on a multitude of domains. If people are interested in doing reinforcement learning for creative writing, for role play, etc., I think this is a very good choice of model. We've tried to, if we believe that RL takes pass at K and turns into pass at 1, we've seeded the model with plenty of niche data in all sorts of domains. So it would be really cool to see. Maybe the model, it might take 100 tries to do something, but yeah, eventually it gets the answer.
Just really quick, I have a practical question, because I do make actual commercial bots that customers have to use. And one of the main complaints while developing them is that they always sound too much like a report. I always try to pick something that doesn't matter if it's DeepSeek, Kimi, or even if you use Sonnet. All the sounds usually good, but it's too expensive. What went into the training? Because I see you guys did pretty high on EQBench. How do you balance out that entire checklist for an answer? If it's a very academic question, you want a whole checklist, with it being able to carry a conversation on naturally, because that does feel like it's pretty hard.
So I guess one of the techniques is rather simple. It's to just kind of we have a different system prompt for each task category, basically. I guess that there is hundreds to thousands of these task categories, each with a specific system prompt that describes how the model should respond. So kind of have answers in different formats that we believe are suitable for each kind of task category. Of course, the user can shape the model. If they disagree with our default behavior, that's okay. You just edit the system prompt and it'll respond in your desired format.
Okay, so that's a very good tip. Just dynamically change the system prompt based on what use case is. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Alrighty, Roger, as part of kind of the places where this model did well, you mentioned Husky Bench, and this is also one of the things that you guys released this week. Would love to hear. First of all, we're always for new evals, new benchmarks, especially creative ones, especially stuff that is not very easy to hill climb. I'm very much interested in evals that are not the same as other evals. Most other evals have the top models on top, but we will very interested in Husky Bench. Tell me about Husky Bench. I want to hear about why testing models on playing poker means any type of sense. Bhavesh, feel free to chime in here as well. Roger, I think you worked on this as well. What is Husky Bench? Why should we care? And who worked on it? And what is it for?
Bhavesh, please go ahead.
So Husky Hold'em Bench, essentially, we came up with this interesting idea. I'm a student at UW, so I hosted this competition called Husky Hold'em, where we had people come in and build their PokerBots, and we had them play against each other. We wanted to make this open source just as a tournament, and I brought it to Roger, who gave me this great idea of turning this into a benchmark. I think if you look at the history of PokerBots or any competitive bots, a lot of it is focused and geared towards really computationally heavy bots. LLMs, on the other hand, are more of thinking. So we kind of wanted to flip the script, and instead of it being LLM playing humans in poker, we kind of wanted to see how well they can develop the poker bots themselves and how well they do against each other. So that's kind of like the idea behind Husky Hold'em Bench.
So just to clarify, this is not the LLM deciding on the next move and has the cards. This is the LLMs coding up a poker model. So you're testing for like coding ability to an extent, but also some understanding of poker, I guess. That's very, very interesting.
Yeah, so the interesting part is that the LLM has to understand the entirety, like poker rules, Texas Hold'em rules. Then they have to understand our code format. They have to follow specific interfaces, and we have memory and time constraint as well. And it has to translate all of that into code, make sure it runs and is syntactically correct, and then finally produce like this final bot that we push out here.
And do they produce multiple bots to get? Do you get like average or something? Or is it like one model creates one bot and then you run this bot against other models? Because of the variability of coding, sometimes the bots they can create may not even run. Like how do you treating the stochasticity of like building a software such as this?
So if you go into our games, we've run 6 batches. And in each batch, each model creates 5 iterations of the bot. And we take the best one and we put it in as that batch's final bot. And then we run this for 6 different batches, where each batch you have 13 choose 6, so 1,000 plus games happening with all of each other.
That's awesome. So you have a bunch of batches, and the models that I see here that are competing: Gemini 2.5 Pro, Qwen 3 Coder, Gemini 2.5 Flash, DeepSeek R1, Oath Pro. This is the first one. And then also you got Hermes for 405B also playing. And let's take a look at some of the results as well. You want to give us the results of who's better at this coding?
It's pairwise. It's one against the other.
Yeah.
I have to compare models one against the other. By the way, specifically poker is extremely hard. The rabbit hole here is very deep about poker, about games that you don't have all the information and so on. I'm just saying it's not just coding the poker, but it's extremely hard. And yeah, it's critical. By the way, the pairwise one playing against the other, we need more benchmarks like this. Yeah. This is really, really, really cool. Yeah, tournament style.
But super quick question before LDJ joins as well. The poker bots themselves are not AI. Those are like just code, right? Just logics and code. The AI part comes into like, I'm going to code up the bot. The bot itself is straight up software.
Yeah, it's just straight up software. I think eventually we hope that the AI can code its own AI poker bot that kind of changes across the game. But right now, it seems like it's just basic logic code.
All right, LDJ, go ahead, and then we'll talk about the leaderboard a little bit and tell you guys what's interesting results here.
Yeah, so I think this is a good kind of new emerging category of benchmarks where a lot of benchmarks have like just a bunch of questions where you have to get like, there's a theoretical max limit where there's 100% accuracy on all the questions and you can't really go past that, and thus you get saturation. But here, when you have things involving ELO, like this could virtually go on like infinitely, right? Like there's not really a cap here of how good it could be, right? Yeah, and
yeah, it's like evergreen in that sense. Yeah, the top models get better and better. Naturally, the benchmark gets harder. You have more and more skilled adversaries until a point where like maybe this is like actually solved. Like there's like some optimal thing.
How much time do you guys get for the PokerBot building?
So when we ran this competition at University of Washington, each person got like a month. Each team got a month to build this PokerBot and then submitted it as the final competition.
Yeah, and then here, like these AIs get like 5 iterations of improvement. Although in general, this is just a minimal agent that we use as alpha launch of the benchmark. But what we want, our vision for this benchmark is for this to be a general model SWE agent scaffold, like paired benchmark. So we do want to add more SWE agents to test out Claude Code, etc.
That is awesome. So we always appreciate new benches. We appreciate you guys coming in and talk to us about like the novel approach. I'm very interested. The bench itself is for the outputs of the model and not the model's kind of thinking or reasoning. This is like a novel approach that I wish we will see some more of as well. Hermes 4, as all Hermes releases, first of all, they're beautiful. The art is incredible always on the release, which is very important to capture the mind share. But also, those models are always fun to talk to. Folks can try them out, download them on Hugging Face with, I want to say, the same license as the original models, Roger, unless I'm mistaken.
Yes.
So you can download them on Hugging Face and chat with them on the Nous Research chat. Roger and Bhavesh, thank you so much for joining us for the first segment for open source of this. Anything else you want to mention? Shout outs to the team super quick. Feel free to do so.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Yeah, I guess like quick shout outs and like Technium as the leader of the post-training team. He was really the mastermind of the Hermes 4 project. Jay Sufa also worked a lot on the synthetic data with us. A lot of the data came from rejection sampling against an RL environment framework that was pioneered by Dakota Mahan. And then I guess like this is all under like our fearless leader like Mozilla, Jeffrey Quinnell. And then a lot of the model like chain of thought analysis came from Karan Ultra. And some of the game data from Shannon. Yeah.
One of the co-founders and one of the more soulful skill testers. So shout out to Karan as well. All right, folks, thank you so much for joining us. We're moving on because we have breaking news, but feel free to stick around and listen to the rest of the show. And then we're going to chat with Quinn about GPT RealTime. So get ready for that, folks. And as we move on to breaking news, I've missed this so much. I've missed breaking news so much. AI breaking news coming at you only on ThursdAI. Love breaking news. I love breaking the news on the show as well. So, folks, we have some breaking news from Google, from a friend Omar Sanseviero there, who works at Gemma. They have released embedding Gemma. And it's been a minute since we talked about embedding models here on the show. The state of the art seems to be always moving in the bigger models, and the huger model it is, that like the better embeddings are. Embeddings obviously are useful for like RAG purposes and just like turning anything into machine understandable, searchable kind of information. And so they launched embedding Gemma. I want to say this is open source. Yeah, it looks like open source. Only 300 million parameters, which is great for embedding models. You want them running quick, you want them running on device. They have released the top open model under 500 million parameters. So no longer, I remember at some point the MTB, the massive embedding benchmark, was controlled by like Mistral backed embedding models, and those were huge. So we need like smaller embedding models. 100+ languages, also incredible, because sometimes the top embedding models are only English. Flexible embeddings with different dimensions, with Matryoshka dimension. We had a chat with folks about Matryoshka embeddings before, and if you're interested, definitely look into archives of what that means. We have a deep dive about Matryoshka embeddings, and you only need 200 megabytes to run this. So shout out to the folks about embedding Gemma, taking the top on the MTB multilingual benchmark. This feels like a new soda, something you would use?
Yeah, it's great for the phone.
Yes.
Right? It's small and fast, and that's exactly what you want in an embedding model. I've been using the 0.6B Quen, and I felt like you could go smaller with that, especially if you do need some kind of on-device RAG, which Apple really needs. So, yeah.
Alrighty, so this is our breaking news. Shout out to the Gemma folks in mobile first RAG pipelines enabling. So definitely they're getting to release some incredible stuff on the phone, and I'm very happy that they're open sourcing some of the stuff. And folks, it's been almost exactly an hour since we're here on ThursdAI, which is usually the time allotted for open source and discussions, at which point we would love to introduce a friend of ours, Kwindla Hultman Kramer. Welcome back to the show. Friend, how are you? How are you doing? It's been a minute. Very exciting topics for you to discuss with us.
Good to see you. Glad you're back from vacation.
Yes. back with a lot of energy as well. And the actual thing that we're going to talk about was actually released kind of last week-ish, but you had some time to talk about this, to test it out. And who better of a person to talk about a new voice release than Quinn, who I consider a resident expert. Quinn is the founder of Daily and the maintainer of PipeCat, which is an open source library to use all these incredible voice releases that we have. So Quinn, with that introduction, folks should already know you. You've been here for a minute. We talked about advanced voice mode releases and real-time stuff. Last week, OpenAI, I think on Thursday, Yam, you guys did like a stream on Thursday and included that stream in the show. They updated GPT real-time. So Quinn, would love to hear from you about kind of what did they release and then some of your experiences, why is this important and why folks should care.
So two big things. It's the GA of the real-time speech-to-speech model and the WebRTC and WebSocket API that sits in front of that model. So they released it late last year, have released improvements along the way. Now they're both taking it to GA, so it's just called GPT real-time, something preview, which indicates, I think, a lot of confidence in that model from OpenAI. And it's a really good step function improvement in model intelligence. The main problem with speech-to-speech models today is that you have to compromise on instruction following accuracy, function calling accuracy, contextual intelligence, if you want to use a speech-to-speech model rather than use like a SOTA LLM in text mode and put a transcription model in front of it and a voice generation model behind it. And what that means is that like 99% of voice AI use cases today, not using the speech-to-speech models yet, that will change, but it won't change just because of this release. So this model's big improvement, still not quite as good on lots of real-world benchmarks at things you really need to use in production, but actually clears my bar for one of my vibe check things that I do every day, which is talk to the computer as much as I can. And I can now use this speech-to-speech model for a bunch of my daily talking to the computer stuff that I couldn't do with the previous releases.
So just to clarify for me and for some listeners, most of the chatbots that they talk to, they want the kind of the highest intelligence. So the highest intelligence still exists in the textual streaming world and token streaming world. So they have to kind of build the infrastructure, which is kind of like what PipeCat also helps with significantly, where you use a different model, like maybe a translation model, to turn speech into text, then input those textual tokens into the model, and then on the other side you do some voicing, like 11 Labs or whatever. There's like multiple companies, Cartesia and a bunch of companies, to then animate this model to feel like it talks to you. But essentially it's a very like textual thing. Speech to speech is a full embedded model, but also because of that it doesn't get up to the level of like reasoning models.
So what we're seeing from the big labs is that they're sort of forking their post-training and the way they think about the model. They're going to reasoning models for all the stuff that's not intended to be real-time, and then they're training the real-time models to be low latency in a slightly different, path of post-training. I think in some ways that's really good because latency matters so much for voice stuff. And if you focus on making the thinking model really great, almost inevitably you're not thinking a lot about time to first token. And for most of the stuff I build, I care a lot about time to first token. And I like having that alignment with how people are training the models matters. In some ways, it's not so great, though, because I don't want the real-time use cases to feel like second-class citizens. I think the single most interesting thing I'm seeing in the voice AI space, and it mirrors a lot of what we're seeing in like the coding agent stuff these days, is we don't live in a one-model world anymore. We live in like a multi-agent world or whatever you want to call it. And in the voice AI space, that means we often have like a conversational loop. There's an LLM that's like talking to you. And then you kick off or you run parallel inference processes that you don't expect to, finish in 100 milliseconds. And those might take 2 seconds or they might take an hour. And you want to figure out how to coordinate those multiple LLM-driven processes, feed data back into the conversational loop, let the conversational loop control them. And the architecture for that stuff is new, super interesting. Like I'm actually spending a lot of our time in PipeCat, like building that layer of the architecture now. And I actually think the sort of talk to the computer use case is like a great example of that, because you want to talk conversationally, but then you also want to control lots of different things that are going on in the software you're using. It feels like you're living in the future a little bit if you're trying to build these apps where you can like talk to them, but also you're controlling a bunch of different apps. It's like, what's the next layer of the operating system that you want for like a voice-enabled future? You want this sort of multi-agent distributed systems control thing.
And that's very interesting because you don't want to keep waiting for it and have it go silent while it does this. Computer can multitask. Like, why wouldn't it go off, do some stuff, and then I can ask a bunch of questions about research, about, hey, go online, do this. And at some point, it's like, hey, actually, I finished that task you wanted me. Like, you want to hear about this now or like maybe later? It shouldn't get stuck as a processing thing waiting for this one thread to finish. So let's get back to real time. Any new changes? Could you give us a little bit of a factual update about what they released? And
they changed the shapes of the API a little bit. So they took the GA as an opportunity to, all the experimentation everybody in the community has done around these new real-time APIs. They sort of finalized the API and made it a GA. So if you've got code, you probably have to do a little bit of updating of the API shapes. They also added a bunch of context engineering stuff along the way that the GA is like the capstone of. And as we all know, context engineering is like the most important thing for agent reliability. You got to give the LLM the tokens it needs at the moment, not the whole conversation history, to get from the 80%-ish reliability in a lot of real world tests, like 99%. So the real-time API added a bunch of context engineering stuff. You can do context surgery. It's still much harder to do that with the real-time APIs than with the traditional APIs, which is, again, another reason why a lot of the enterprise use cases are sort of slow to move to speech-to-speech models and APIs. But to their credit, I think they heard a lot of feedback from people trying to use these models for hard real-world tasks, and they added the context engineering stuff. It's still not like, I would like to see the voices be even more steerable. They've added some stuff there, and they've actually separated out these models that are audio focused into the real-time API, which is speech to speech. And then they also have a steerable transcription GPT-4 and a steerable voice generation GPT-4. Those are really flexible transcription and voice generation models. I'd actually like to see sort of all of that stuff in the real-time API.
Yeah.
But, sort of different models for different use cases. Everybody's experimenting. We're all like pushing the frontier in different ways. So I think you can see the sort of audio focus going in these experimental directions, which I think is really helpful.
That's great. I read about a few features that the folks are asked for. Obviously, MCP has been kind of like on a hype down train a little bit, but it looks like people are like heads down working on MCP. I think, Yam, you guys talked about MCP last time and how much usage actually we get from like MCP stuff. So they added remote MCP server support for voice. So assuming that you could, like, in the case you want to talk to your computer, now your computer can like do some stuff with easy connectors as well. I wanted to ask you about image inputs. How does that work? So this is a multimodal model, not only in voice, so it also sees what you wanted to see?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that because I've had this checkpoint for a long time. So I did the image generation stuff a while ago, but yeah, you're right. It was just released. Kind of taking the GPT-4o Omni idea that you can pass it text, images, audio, and the model will just do the right thing, and making that available in the speech-to-speech model in the real-time API. So there's a new like API surface area for just giving it images, and it works pretty much the way you would expect if you've been doing vision stuff with LLMs. It's good.
So last year, as a reminder for folks who are listening, I built a Halloween bot thingy. And I think GPT Realtime just came out back then, like the speech-to-speech model, way before GA. I had to pipeline a bunch of stuff. I had to take a screenshot, go to Gemini separately, get a description, then fit this description into the text, have the text talk about this, etc. This now seems like a holistic approach if I can spend the money to actually do this in real time, because one of the things that held me back then was it was very, very expensive as well. I think the prices since then came out like 10x, and then
it's more than 10x since you built that. And it's now, if you do the math, it depends on your use case, but it's now about 4 times as expensive as using the separate models, which is, for many use cases, that price difference just doesn't matter. Like if what you really want is the lowest possible latency and the highest possible sort of natural voice input and output vibes, then there are a lot of use cases where that 3x to 5x price delta is totally fine. That it's like 4 cents a minute, very loosely speaking, depending on your use case and a bunch of factors. On the image stuff, that's sort of back to the multi-agent and the context engineering things, though. I had some conversations with the real-time API team about this, because you can only give it so many images before, like, you have to do a bunch of context engineering, or the model performance is just not going to be what you expect. So for a lot of the stuff I think you would build, like the Halloween costume thing, you may still want to use like a parallel inference process that's focused on images and use the real-time API maybe a little bit for vision. But if you're feeding it like a video stream, it's not going to be the best model for that. So maybe you want to feed it a couple of recent frames. You want to have a separate video inference model. You want to be doing some coordination between those streams so that like the real-time API always knows what the video inference stream is doing, but you're not taxing the real-time API with 10 frames a second for an hour.
For sure. It's not for that. And I think the last thing is CIP for phone flows. Would love to hear from you about that. That I think is very important for many folks in enterprise.
Super big on the enterprise side. So this acronym SIP is the like core telephony integration interoperation standard. So if you're making a digital telephony connection to a call center or to like the big phone system in like a hospital or whatever, you're talking SIP. If you're taking a phone number in from Twilio, like somebody you buy a phone number from Twilio, somebody calls that phone number, Twilio is terminating that phone number, and then you can talk to that Twilio service by like SIP. So it is the lingua franca for like old school telephony stuff. So the fact that OpenAI has native SIP support now means you can directly wire up the real-time API to basically any phone system in the world. And 99% of voice AI monetizable use cases today touch a phone system somewhere. So I think that's a really nice recognition from the OpenAI team's part of what those of us building these applications for commercial use need. They're really leaning in. They want to be the full stack. They've got the agents SDK, they've got the real-time API, they've got SIP, they've got WebRTC, they've got WebSockets. They're really trying to like give you everything you need.
Yep. It looks like they're gearing towards like, hey folks, this is the one-stop solution. So last two things, new two voices, Cedar and Marine, specifically exclusively for the real time, and the existing ones also upgraded to an extent. I saw our friend Swix test out on his karaoke bench or whatever when he tries to get these models to sing. Very famously, like last year, I like asked the folks at OpenAI, like, why wouldn't it sing? And they said, we also wanted to sing. At some point, there was a lapse in the release of dense voice mode, it sang, and then they pulled it back. But I don't think that he got them to sing this time as well. So while these voices are malleable, they still are like under restrictions as something you would expect from OpenAI.
I mean, it's partly restrictions, it's partly just there's not enough data. And that's why the instruction following and function calling aren't as good in the multi-turn and audio domain. Like, we got a lot of really good tokens now for text models. When you're going to multi-turn conversation, the data is kind of out of distribution relative to what the big models are trained on. And it's even worse in audio multi-turn. So, it's not surprising that they haven't tried to label a whole bunch of music data so that these are like full bore music models, because like they don't even have enough speech data yet.
That's true. But we know they can sing. Like, we heard them sing Shakira or whatever. It's just like, maybe some sound effects.
But I think if you don't lock that down in post-training, you probably, this is my theory because I'm obviously not inside these big labs, but you probably end up with a lot more surface area for hallucinations and other things that would be kind of not ideal behavior from the model.
100%. Yam, you had a follow-up question as well.
Yeah. My question is, you can build your own speech-to-speech system by using some model as an engine, and then having a speech-to-text and text-to-speech on the sides, and then you can switch the engine. Everyone understands the benefits of that. You can switch the engine and so on. But you know very well that it hurts the quality of it. You get delays and so on, and time to speech, and you need to talk and then transcribe. Only when you're done talking, you can start transcribing, because you know how it goes. So speech to speech, but speech to speech is also very expensive today. What do you think about the price and where it's going? Because it's an interesting question about whether or not speech to speech is the right way to go. If this is the price, it's a completely new system, and we might just want to work on efficiency of the current systems. What do you think about this?
So I think there's going to be for a long time room for both, because as big models get better, small models get better too. And as all the models get better, there are more things we all want to do, which sometimes are actually best done by a collection of small models that you've done the engineering to glue together in a specialized way versus just using one big model. a lot of use cases are going to stay in the model fusion approach, because if you need multiple models anyway, and you need to specialize, and you need to context engineer and latency engineer and cost engineer, and you need great observability, you're still better off with multiple models. I mean, the future is just going to be multi-model. I believe that now. I think there's no more question. Are we going to a future where there's like just big models? I think we all probably who do this stuff every day think that's not what the future is going to look like. I want to push back just a little bit on your framing. The speech-to-speech models today, the best speech-to-speech models today, have good latency, good general intelligence performance, great mixed language performance. So if you're doing something like language teaching and learning and you need to switch language in the middle of a sentence, the speech-to-speech models are so much better than any other approach you can glue together. But they're actually significantly worse, not just on price, but on how well you can actually get them to do what you want them to do, which is a big deal. Like, the reason enterprises aren't moving to them in mass is because I can do benchmarks and show you that I can build a more reliable multi-model system than I can build a speech-to-speech model system. And that matters. Like, you're making an outbound call to qualify a sales lead. It's not the price that's the barrier to using the real-time API. It's the fact that if you are 10% worse on converting those leads, like, that's a massive, massive hit economically for your application. The other thing I'd say about these speech-to-speech APIs is observability is really hard. So like the speech mode and the transcription you get back from these models are sort of decoupled enough that you actually can't really use the transcription to know what the model heard. Whereas if I build a transcription LLM voice generation pipeline, I know exactly what I fed to the model because I did it in my code. I got that transcription, I modified it or processed it however I want, and then I fed that thing to the model. So there's like no gap in observability. And until the OpenAI API or the Gemini API completely close that observability gap, it's actually really hard to build enterprise applications if you have observability gaps.
And right now they do this by also transcribing, just to send it back to you as a developer, just for you to like understand, okay, the model may have heard this, but because this model understands nonverbal cues like laughs, etc. Many translation models don't catch that. Many translation models don't catch even the pauses that we have or different. So that's what you mean by like what you get as a developer backwards is not necessarily what the model heard. And so it's hard to like, square this together into like, okay, this is why it said this thing.
If you do a lot of like observability with these models, you will find that in the real-time mode, you very often know that the model heard something different than you read in the transcript. Like the gap is fairly large. And also you still see in the real-time API, the model will sometimes transcribe what I say per turn in like Japanese. Like I really didn't speak Japanese that turn. Like I wish I could, but no.
Well, I think we've covered this GA release. Definitely there's still gaps for enterprises to adopt this, but it seems that for some use cases, real time could be very, very interesting. I think specifically
it's gaining market share, and it is the future for a lot of use cases. It's just, like everything else we're doing.
There's a giant frontier, absolutely. Thank you so much for helping us cover this. I really, really appreciate your insights as always. Folks should definitely check out PipeCat for the ability to plug in very simple models like this and switch around them, and also build the alternative if you need to into multi-model pipeline. Feel free to stick with us as we're moving forward, and we're going to discuss some other OpenAI stuff, Big Company API, and related as well. I think you mentioned this. Let's go through some OpenAI updates super quick. There's a few acquisitions and a few folks that were posted about being VPs of apps, StatSig and Alex. Those are two companies that OpenAI have purchased. I think the folks from StatSig become the VP of applications now. Yam, StatSig should be familiar to folks.
Anthropic and Claude, specifically Claude Code, uses StatSig to track all metrics. And everyone is now suspicious about this telemetry recording service that OpenAI just acquired. It can completely be because I know it's a great product. These are great people. It can be the reason, but people notice that Anthropic is using the service pretty extensively.
So in the data usage kind of section of Anthropic, they say Claude Code connects from users' machines to Stat6 service to log operational metrics such as latency, reliability, and usage patterns. This plugin does not include any code or file paths, etc., and Stat6 security documentation. So basically, you can disable telemetry, but they are absolutely using some type of the service to improve Claude Code. And now OpenAI has at least some of the data in a 1.1 billion transaction, which is very, very impressive. And Alex, I believe, was the Xcode coding kind of co-pilot for Xcode that they started like as a plugin. LDJ, you correctly corrected me at the beginning that those are two different companies that OpenAI purchased, and some of these folks are joining OpenAI at key positions. To Vijay, I believe, is joining one of the top folks to strengthen OpenAI's thing. Specifically, also, we'll get to this. Oh, yeah, Vijay Yeraji is joining as CTO of applications to lead engineering for ChatGPT and Codex. So this is kind of the outcome. So it's kind of like an acqui hire plus execu hire type that we've seen before in Meta and other places. What else is with OpenAI? I think a small update there is OpenAI releases projects for free users, and they have updated some of the project settings. So like larger file uploads for free, you can upload up to 5 files, and everybody else can upload way more files as well. And then you can customize the projects as well. I think what's more important is projects only memory control. So ChatGPT is notoriously good at product. So besides the LLM, memory is very important. And project only memory is something that people have been asking for a long time, because you want to kind of encapsulate and maybe within the project to work about some stuff, but maybe not have it leak towards your general chats. So project only memory improvements have come to, you can control whether or not the project memory leaks into general memory. I think memory is very important, and ChatGPT projects will add this as well.
Do you think that you have some delicate control about what exact memory is going into the context at the moment? You can just have like some control panel. This is from the project. This is my memory. This is from previous chats and so on. So you can on the fly change what memory goes into the chat, because it influenced the chat a lot. It's very notable. And also system prompts and everything. And one last thing, OpenAI, please let me pin chats, star chats. Every platform supports this, and I think it's gonna help everybody else here. And so I'm just saying. But yeah, it's a good move. In my opinion, I'm using a lot of, I'm always saying that the ChatGPT app, you can say what you say about the models. I think they're great, but you can say what you say. The apps are great. Are absolutely phenomenal. All of them, the mobile, the web apps are absolutely phenomenal. Everyone agrees they are really good. So
with one tiny exception, DJ, before we get to you, one tiny exception. If you are on the desktop Mac app and you're pasting a bunch of context and it refuses, go to the web version, paste the same context. Usually it's a app limitation and not the model context limitation. It drives me nuts. So if anybody's listening from OpenAI, why?
Bug report, the copy button doesn't work on deep research. I'm just saying bug report if we're reporting bugs. But yeah, okay.
But besides this, those are great products, absolutely. LDJ, you had a comment as well?
Yeah, I said this at the beginning, but of course, probably new viewers, that in the past 2 weeks, Sam Altman said in the past 2 weeks, there was a 10x increase in usage of Codex, which is pretty insane. And then he also said improvements coming, which in case people forgot, there is like a coding specific model OpenAI does have called Codex 1. And so maybe a Codex 2 model, which might be a coding fine tune of GPT-5. Who knows?
And we're going to talk about Codex in a little bit after we run through some of the other updates. So OpenAI is raising $10 billion, and most of it is for buyback, so employees will get some liquidity. So congratulations to multiple folks in OpenAI whose lives have completely changed now to be able to go, keep working on the problem, but without the stress of where, when, and how will I get paid. Yeah, still a non-for-profit controls the profit arm company, and to see some folks realize they're kind of like very well-deserved gains is really fun. It's really cool, and I think it's a great example for private companies to be able to do this. Speaking of large fundraisers, I think the next thing that we must update, and I think it was like one of the biggest updates for this week in terms of fundraising, Anthropic raised a insane $13 billion Series F. It looks like they don't want to follow the playbook of regular bigger companies getting to like Series D or E or whatever and then going public. None of the main AI companies seem to be wanting to do this. Series F at a $13 billion at a $183 billion post-money valuation. Their revenue at the start of the year was roughly $1 billion, and now it's over $5 billion by August. Claude Code and the coding paradigm definitely is a huge contributor to this. Everybody like switched to Claude Code and then introduced Claude Max. People maxed out the Claude Max. They had to like play around with some of the stuff. So definitely Anthropic is focusing on the engineering. They have 300,000 plus business customers, and large accounts are up to 7x over a year. Thank you. The coverage for this I took from Swix and the news for Small AI. If you're not subscribed to the news for Small AI, definitely should. That's how I keep up daily on some of the stuff if I'm not able to like just get the raw feed from the X platform. So what else is interesting? Lead investors, not super interesting. So this is less for us. We usually cover the updates, but this is so huge that you guys should know Anthropic is going to be around, and still we'll have many more GPUs to train bigger opuses for us. Yam, you mentioned something, or LDJ, you mentioned something about them apologizing for nerfing one of the models for Claude Code. Could you talk about more about this?
Oh yeah. I would show it because I think it's. Let me just show it to everyone. Anthropic did some update for efficiency, and apparently people noticed. But it's kind of a conspiracy theory kind of thing. And maybe the model changed. Maybe it's worse. You can never know.
Yes,
but
there's always one person goes viral by saying, hey, the model was good last week and today it's not as good. And then people say, no, we pinned our models to exactly the same model weights, exactly the same whatever. And it's hard to figure out whether it's like personal feelings, people stop prompting correctly or whatever. But we now have proof. Yeah.
So what ended up happening is that, this is, by the way, my spicy take about the thing, but what we get is a statement from Anthropic that Cloud Opus 4.1 and 4 had degraded quality for a short period of time, and people noticed. Conspiracy confirmed. That's the official statement from Anthropic. You can find it if you want, the link and everything. I think it's important to show something like this and not just talk about it.
Not only show this, but read this out for podcast listeners. From 5:30 on August 25th to 2 a.m. UTC on August 28th, so about 3 days, Cloud Opus 4.1 experienced a degradation in quality for some requests. And then the next part just kills me. The world we're living in is incredible. This is the official update. Users may have seen lower intelligence, malformed responses, or issues with tool calling in Cloud Code. Lower intelligence. So users may have, the tools that they pay $200 a month for may have changed under their feet, and it remains to be seen for them to whether or not, they screwed up with their prompting or not. This was caused by a rollout of our inference stack, which we have since rolled back for Cloud Opus 4. We often make changes intended to improve the efficiency, throughput to our models. Our intention is always to retain the same model response quality. So basically what this means is, even though the model itself may have been the same, the inference stack maybe have been optimized, maybe they did some, I don't know, this doesn't mention quantizations, maybe they changed the templates, etc., and they do this without users kind of necessarily consent or knowledge. So the users only knew about this 3 days after the fact, after they reported about this. What do you think about this? I don't love this. People cannot trust their tools.
Absolutely not. I think if you're paying for a tool, at least deserve transparency. You probably deserve to rely on the tool, but at least transparency. At least tell people there is an update going on so people would know. It's hard when these tools, you can't know. You use this every day. People use Claude Code for work every day. If it messes up, it messes up. People feel it, and you want to rely on the tool. We don't have these off weeks from OpenAI for a very long time. I think that since GPT 4.0, everything feels very stable. And I thought that we moved from the initial phase of the field where everyone was optimizing their inference stack and no one really knew, and things fell off, but apparently not. And I think at least just tell people what is going on. I mean,
Quinn,
yeah.
Any comments?
The OpenAI, I think, is the best company in the world at running a massive supercomputer, but I will say that their time to first token has gone up a lot in the last 6 months because we monitor that really closely. I think that's an intentional trade-off they're making, but it's not the right trade-off for the use cases I care about. So that goes a little bit to the transparency. I really want to be able to say, hey, I want you to keep time to first token stable. I care about that more than anything else. They're making a different trade-off. I also think the charitable view of the Anthropic thing is that they were trying to keep throughput fast even as their usage grew. And they did benchmarks that made them think that they weren't impacting quality, because benchmarks are really hard, but they could serve more users and they could keep the existing users happier. Like if I were inside Anthropic, I could totally see making that decision. And, it didn't quite work out, but like they update the models all the time. So it feels like an honest mistake to me.
I'm with you on the honest mistake. The thing that I keep getting hit on is that these larger companies, while being multiple hundreds of billions dollar in valuation, multiple hundreds of thousands business users, still don't realize the impact area of how much people rely on them day to day. And I think to that extent, we can talk about this release where like impacted actual people for like 3 days and people need to get the work done and they need to struggle with themselves to see, AI agents, coding agents, they're not perfect anyway. Like anyway, you ask them to do something, they would do something else. And then like, it's really hard to like capture the instruction following ability of these models. And then when it's like slightly degraded, you basically fuck with people's reality. You fuck with people's ability to understand what's going on. And then it takes folks posting on Twitter, let's say, and posting on Local Llama, and then all collectively agreeing that, hey, something's fucky here. For the people who's like, oh, actually, we did like the inference release. I think that these people need to start to contend with the fact that like people rely on these tools and they're not more to the co-pilots every day now. And some sort of like heads up, folks, we're about to change something. Maybe it's going to be better for you, but like we're about to change something. And the ability to opt out of this, I think at some point we as users need to ask for this because of the absolutely reliance on many of these things. And we've seen multiple companies fall in the same trap hole. Like, oops, we didn't notice. Oops, we didn't have enough evals when we released. Oops. These oops is like people need to be able to trust these models. The benefit here is local models, open source models. When we on Weights and Biases Inference, for example, host Kimi K2, we were going to give you the same Kimi K2 yesterday and today. And if we upgrade it, we will absolutely tell you with a different benchmark, like a different endpoint. This is a different Kimi K2. We'll try and not change the VLM version underneath all models as well, which could have caused something like this. But definitely, I think more scrutiny for these companies is needed and more chance to opt out of automatic updates. Like my iPhone doesn't update when I don't want it to. It only updates if I want it to. And I think the same should be happening with like these tools. Definitely honest mistake, but also folks, I think, need to contend with the fact that like this is now in people's lives and they're not used to getting updates without knowing, and they shouldn't get used to this, I believe. We're moving on because there's more news for us to cover super quick. I really want to get to Codex as well. The more news that we want to chat about is Grok Code 1, FKA Sonic coding model from Grok out of nowhere. LDJ, you wanna talk about this a little bit? Because we did talk about this, but it seems that Grok Code is now a significant contender in the world of code. What? Out of nowhere.
Yeah, so on Open Router in here, let me check on what's the latest stats there. But last I checked, which was a few days ago, it seemed to be second or first place actually, and it was either in the top trending or top used models per week.
I have this chart here: 52.8% of coding traffic on Open Router is now Grok Code Fast 1.
It's number one now. I just checked.
Incredible. So something like 697 billion tokens in the past, I won't say week. It's insane numbers. It's absolutely insane numbers. This model came out of XAI training, like a coding specific model, and testing it out for free. I think a lot of this can be attributed to the fact that it's free. It's being given out as free in places like Klein, I believe, still, and multiple other coding agents. So like a huge deal because people would definitely use the best free model on top of the best paid model because it's free. But 50% of all coding traffic for XAI is a huge achievement. So shout out to the folks who...
Also fast. It's just a week out. I mean, it's just 1 week and it's already like more than 50%. Goes to show.
It is fast. But I believe it was about 270 tokens per second people were clocking it at. But average speed for GPT-5, which I think a lot of people underestimate how fast GPT-5 is, that's like around like 180 tokens per second average.
For the non-reasoning one. The reasoning one takes it longer.
For the non-reasoning, yeah. Well, like if you count like all the reasoning tokens for the reasoning one, I think it's like not that much slower too, but obviously it needs to think way longer and use way more tokens. So the overall response will take longer, yeah. But yeah, I think it's going to be exciting to see more coding specialized models and maybe something like Codex 2 from OpenAI, and maybe, who knows, maybe Claude will even maybe have a coding specialized model.
Just want to show the actual plot from XAI about the speed of Grok Code Fast 1, speed versus output price. And you can easily see that it's way faster than everybody else and nearly as cheap as Qwen 3 Coder. That's impressive. I'm just saying that there is a different axis that is not shown on the chart, and which is quality.
Yes.
But yeah, look, most of coding tasks, most of any task is like the small things you're just too lazy to do. And some tasks are extremely hard. So I think what we see here is you give people free stuff that are good enough for, I don't know, 80% of what they do, they will use them. Absolutely. And it's a really, really good way to spread. Grok, by the way, is really good at code. The real Grok. I'm just saying, if you didn't try it because, I don't know, if there are so many, just go and try it. It's really good, and it can do things that other models just couldn't. I mean, all of them can. They're good at different things, but yeah, it's a good model.
Alrighty, folks, we've covered pretty much everything. We have about 2 things to cover. And before this, I want to jump into this week's buzz super quick, because this week we have some exciting news for you. It feels like I need to re-record this intro, because this intro started when we were only Weights and Biases. Now, obviously, Weights and Biases by CoreWeave, which is our parent company, and it is public. So disclosure here, there's nothing exposed here. All public information shared, and everything is basically my opinion, besides the actual facts that we can reshare. And the facts are that this week we have some exciting news from CoreWeave. We have this incredible company joining us. It's called OpenPipe. I believe both Kyle and David have been on the show, but if not, we definitely talked about some of the stuff that they did. Kyle's definitely been on the show. OpenPipe has been with the industry for a long time. We talked about them training models and fine-tuning models and building pipelines for tuning models. And recently, they have focused on RL and SFT workflow in a framework called ART, which we also mentioned. OpenPipe has open-sourced ART and has been developing it, and will continue to develop this as part of CoreWeave's mission to build the right infrastructure and tools to serve AI workloads at every level of abstraction, from metal to token, folks. So now we're expanding our whole offering. I'm super excited about this one because it plugs right in where we need. CoreWeave runs things on bare metal and some incredible optimization that big companies like OpenAI, for example, use, all the way to observability on the model training layer from the Weights and Biases that everybody knows and love, to now to train, build libraries to train SFTs, track all of that in Weights and Biases models. Then, because of RL, you need rollouts. You need to see whether or not your agents are doing the right things as part of the RL, and converting those signals back into signals for the model. You can track all of that in Weave, our observability and relation software. Then you can evaluate those models, and eventually you can also post those models and inference. So we're working really hard on getting the inference for custom models up as well. So as you see, the folks at CoreWeave are really working hard on every part of the stack, complete end-to-end every part of the stack. And because of that, when you use one of our products, for example, inference, you would be able to use the other ones like evaluation and tracing. If you use the ART library to train and support SFT, you will definitely use Weights and Biases to track all of this. So as you see, we're gearing towards a holistic solution here. CoreWeave is doing the right moves, I believe, and I personally love Kyle and David. So huge congratulations, folks, for this incredible milestone achievement. I know it's not easy to run a company. Definitely know that it's a celebratory move when a company like CoreWeave acquires you, as having gone through it, not as a founder though. So shout out to Kyle, David, and some of the rest of the OpenPipe team.
Yeah, also OpenPipe released an interesting benchmark, interesting code example model this week using this specifically. It was really, really interesting. Completely, let me just show you actually. It is right, one moment. So basically what you just talked about is this specific trainer system for models. What they show here is that nearly for free, $300, which is for free in this domain, in a couple of hours, you can get an agent to do deep research on state-of-the-art performance level, which is kind of crazy. It's only 14 billion parameters. And even more interesting here is that it's all automatic. You can use this system for whatever you want about it. You can basically ask this using this system to do whatever you want in terms of agent. Use whatever tools that you give it, and it will automatically just go and generate synthetic data for SFT, and then apply a GRPO and evaluate against whatever benchmark that you want, all automatically. So basically, we are at the point where you can just ask, hey, make this model funnier, or train this model to use this specific API or this specific tool, and it will automatically do all the steps for you and just give you a model that is better at this specific benchmark. And it's really, really, really useful. I mean, I'm not sure that people realize how powerful widespread RL really is, and it is powerful. And we're just starting to see all the automations of it and wild times, and absolutely great acquisition. And by the way, it fits perfectly into the pipeline. It's absolutely clear how it fits into the pipeline.
Building blocks to be a holistic platform. I absolutely love this, and good to see. All right, we're moving on from this week's buzz. We have two more things to cover. Super quick, Apple released Fast VLM. It's good to see Apple release something a week before the actual release. Let me just show this super quick. Let me take your stage, get this to stage. All right, so Apple released Fast VLM 7B, a speed first vision encoder, and it's super cool. It's like 3 models, 7B, 1.5B, and 0.5B fast vision models. They run like super quick. I really want to show an example of this here live. Let me try to click this link, because I actually don't think that this example is the right one. I think Clem posted the right example where they have this fast VLM running and decoding an Apple video in real time. I think Clem posted this. Am I wrong? It's been Clem posted a lot. Yeah, this. So so you can see kind of the video that Apple posted, I think last year. And on the bottom right, you can see live captions. And those captions are like maybe 250 milliseconds behind of what happens on the screen. So this like actually takes the video model, the fast VLM video model, and runs it on web GPU, which is incredible, in real time, because the models are tiny. And
wait a minute, that small? Like you're gonna, okay, that changes everything. That's really, really cool.
It's a very tiny VLM, very tiny VLM that runs like fully on device. And I really found it funny because somebody reacted to Clem and said, hey, it's not that good. And they posted like this example of the person riding in a like F1 car, and the live caption was, the image depicts an older man wearing headphones, glasses, and a black polo shirt with a headset microphone attached to his earpiece, which doesn't seem like what's happening here. And Clem was like, no, definitely not perfect, because it was like a millisecond delay, because the one frame before this was Tim Cook wearing a polo shirt and headphones, and like this little caption was basically on the frame before. So it lags a little bit. But if you imagine something like a live translation or like a live transcript where people gonna like transcribe and translate, that delay is significantly larger than this. So this model is able to understand what's happening on the screen in web GPU live on the computer as the video progresses, which is like super, super cool.
Oh, that live subtitles, man. You fine-tune the thing for live subtitles. That's incredible.
Live
Seriously,
subtitles for the vision thing, like what actually like what's happening on the screen, which I find very, very impressive. So shout out to Apple for open sourcing this. Let's take a look at the license super quick. Unless, DJ, you already know it by heart, but I think we could just take a look. And this model is up on the Apple models Hugging Face and FastVLM in 0.5, 1.5, and 7. They submitted to the CVPR in 2025. I don't see a license here, Apache. Apple usually is like more restricted with license, but I don't see a license here yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the license is either.
The highlight there is this model runs with MLX, and then official repository allows you to use this in iOS and macOS apps so that you'd be able to build vision-enabled features right into your mobile applications. Yum. This now is the conversation. Quinn, thank you so much, Quinn, for joining us. He had to leave, but he dropped a comment here. And now we should definitely talk about Codex versus Claude Code discussion. Let's start with Sam Altman posting about this and then improvements, and then we'll continue and tell people where we are in regards of this battle of the coding agents.
Yes, sure. So here, I might as well send you the link to the thread that I was referencing. Actually, I already have it right here, so I'll put it in the StreamYard chat. It's right there.
Yep.
And yeah, in the past 2 weeks, 10x increase in usage of Codex, of OpenAI Codex, and they say improvements are coming soon. And he gives some other details, which I don't have at top of mind right now.
Sam says usage is up 10x in the past 2 weeks. That's incredible. And like many folks have commented on the actual hype not being just hype. Yam, I think you're one of those folks. Do you want to tell us about kind of some of your Codex experiences? So again, for folks who are listening, you have no idea what Codex is a CLI tool that you install. It used to be a model in OpenAI, and then there used to be like a different thing, like an agent thing. And now Codex is a CLI tool that is Claude Code comparable. You can ask it to do stuff, and it like integrates with your IDE, replaces your IDE, and you can just basically ask it to code for you. Uses GPT-5, I believe, and their own Codex model interchangeably.
Yeah, absolutely. I can show you, by the way,
Yeah.
one versus the other. I haven't prepared this. I just opened, set it up, and we can see things. I can see it live. One moment. I'm not the one showing.
You are the one
Okay.
showing now. Yes.
Okay. So basically, if you don't know, these are CLI agents. They run in the terminal. Why people like them so much? First, they are slim. They are small. You can just ask them whatever you want, and they can do it. Second, they can use your computer. They run in the terminal. They have access to your entire computer. They can do whatever you do on your computer through text. So this is why people are using the terminal engines nowadays. And you can, there are ports for IDEs and so on, because people are asking online, why would I use this? So that's pretty much the reason. On the right, we have Claude Code right here. One moment. Yeah, on the right. Oh. Okay. Okay, I guess we need an update. So we are going to try to update live, as you can see. But if it's not going to work, we're just going to leave it like that. So apparently we don't have Claude Code with us today, but we have Codex. Codex is...
I think it's a great highlight of why people are getting excited about Codex, because this one works and Claude Code, for some reason, after update, decided to just quit it.
Yeah, look, that's on my end. I probably didn't update it. I just recently had the max plan, so, I need to set it up, and I used the Codex over the past couple of days, so I just didn't know this. Anyway, that's the solution from OpenAI. It uses GPT-5. It was hyped up. The hype was building up on X, and I was curious, is the hype real? And I got to tell you, yes, it is. Codex is really good. It started as an experimental POC, early stages, and people just remember that this was the case, but it's not the case anymore. It matured a lot. And now it's a really good product that you can use. Basically, you can just go and ask whatever you want, like, what files do I have on my desktop, for example. As you can see, the model is working, doing whatever it is doing. That's GPT-5. When it says listing desktop files, it is calling things on your computer, running code on your computer. As you can see, it's writing scripts at the moment, running on your computer, getting back outputs, and just doing the entire loop for you. The cool thing is that not only I can tell it to find stuff on my desktop, and I can also tell it to organize my desktop, or if there is code, to look into my code, to look into my terminal. It just has access to your entire computer. That's pretty much it. I don't have any specific, very hard, challenging task on the fly just to show you how well it works, but I did try it extensively, and it works really, really well. GPT-5 engine high, GPT-5 high as an engine is an absolute beast.
And you can switch those with slash models, right?
You can switch those with slash models. By the way, it's all open source. OpenAI absolutely based for releasing this open source, and also supports, if you want, you really want, you can use whatever endpoint that you want, even from competitors. So shout out to OpenAI for this. And yeah, it's a really good thing. I just want to say my own opinion. The engine is great. The product is great. Claude Code has had more time in development, so it feels kind of minimal. The engine that is actually running the model, Claude Code, feels more baked, you can say. The tools, the prompts, and everything, it's more... it has MCPs. Absolutely.
Oh, Codex has MCPs as well?
Absolutely.
Amazing.
None of them are configured at the moment, but it
Yes.
absolutely has MCP support. You can switch the models here. These are the GPT-5 versions, and you can go on and change those. There are some other options, like what you want to auto-approve. You don't want to give permission to the model to do whatever it wants, so you can restrict some things and approve and ask and tell the model these things I need you to ask me to approve, and these things you can do on your own.
How does it work? Does it authenticate against your OpenAI account?
Yeah,
Does
yeah,
it
yeah,
like
yeah.
API key? Like how do people actually use this?
I authenticated with my OpenAI account. I have the OpenAI, the Pro account, the expensive one, and I just on the initial run, it tells you whether or not you want to log in with your ChatGPT account. It's very, very simple. Just
Nice.
show you a link, you press with your mouse, open a browser, and you authenticate, and that's it. It starts.
So no API keys to paste with Claude Max. The highlight, Yam, thank you so much for the coverage. I will say two things. First of all, Quinn, who was just here, said that he was 100% on Claude Code 2 weeks ago, and now he switched 100% to Codex this week. So also Quinn gives you that data point. And number two that I wanted to highlight is this thing that Sam Altman retweeted, which is from Thibaut. Thibaut works on Codex in OpenAI. It says, pro tip, enable Codex code reviews. It's been described multiple times to me as superhuman in its ability to spot subtle flaws. Navigate to chatgpt.com/codex, speed on onboarding, enable for your repos in the setting, and then deep reviews on every PR. So basically, you'd be able to tag and assign pull requests in GitHub to Codex as well, because Codex is not only a CLI tool, it's kind of like the offering, the suite of things to happen. So yeah, Codex is a little bit confusing because it's also the kind of the OpenAI's like online thing where you can like kick off inside like an agent online on the cloud.
That's really cool. In a completely different way, it's cool.
Yes.
That thing is really, really cool because you can walk with it in your pocket. And I don't think people realize that you walk with this thing in your pocket. It's really cool, in my opinion.
And they also have
but
integration to Cursor and Windsurf as well. So you can hit this up and open in Windsurf and then have Codex built in, kind of like Claude Code as well, to just integrate what you integrate. So not only a CLI, it's also an extension to your editor and also a cloud running agent thing and also a PR reviewer as well. So you can have it review your PRs, which is super cool.
I just want to say, OpenAI, please, there are 5 different things called Codex at the moment. Please don't call everything Codex, because we talked about the API, the CLI, now we are talking about different Codex on the web. There is Codex, a model, which is a fine tune of Codex, and there is you get the point. Just give them different names. It's hard.
Give them names.
But
folks.
yeah.
All right, folks. I think with this very interesting kind of switch in the AI coding CLI agents, we will conclude the show for today. It was incredible, exactly 2 hours. So thank you so much, everybody who joined us. We're clocking in at around 8,000 or so views, which is incredible. Shout out to everybody who joins. If you're joining for the first time, ThursdAI has been here for the past 2.5 years, almost without fail. I think we missed like one Thursday like a year and a half ago, and we're not planning to miss any other ones. To give you updates on everything that happens in the world of AI, just because we love to talk about this as friends on the show, and many people just told us, hey, this is really fun. We are participating with you. So favorite time of the week, Thursday, we had breaking news today. We had 2 great guests, well, 3 great guests. We had 2 folks from Nous Research, and then we also had Kwindla Kramer, our resident voice expert, to talk about GPT RealTime. That's in GA. We had Nistan here before. LDJ and Jan Pelek are here with me to end the show with you. My name is Alec, and the show is sponsored by Weights and Biases from CoreWeave. We also had some exciting updates from that end as well. If you missed any part of the show, everything is posted as a podcast and a newsletter immediately after this. So please subscribe at ThursdAI.news. And with that, I think we're at the end. You wanted to comment last thing?
Fill the AGI.
And we're here until AGI arrives, for sure.
Quen, we see you're teasing, Quen. We see you guys are teasing. We're saying,
waiting,
we saw it.
We're going to cover this next week. With that, everybody, thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you here next week. Bye-bye, everyone.